why did you come to BYU?
That's a great question.
Welcome to Beyond the Game. I'm Mike Lacey, and I'm with a very, very, very good friend and very old friend. He's not old, but we've been friends for a long time. Royce Bybee. And many people from BYU and from California will remember Royce for a lot of things, and we're going to talk about that. But Beyond the Game is about talking about the stories behind the game and what went on. So, Royce, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here. Great to be here, to especially be with my former teammate.
Absolutely.
Mike Lacey, number 45.
Number 45. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
You know, they retired number 45.
Oh,
no, they didn't. I think they were when
I wasn't invited to that ceremony.
Royce, we have a really cool history, and it'll be fun to hear about Royce. Royce was All-American in high school. He was coached by Fred Whittingham.
At Rick's.
At Rick's Junior College.
Yeah, 2 years at Rick's, yeah.
And he was All-American in junior college, quarterback. The problem with quarterbacks is they frequently have a different perspective of the game of football. They have these jerseys that protect them. Nobody can hit them because they're important and special guys. But Royce, you were one of those teammates that was always, just friends with everybody. And I always appreciated that.
Well, we had great teammates, as you know.
We did.
And I was there in 78, 79, and 80, and all those years were just great years with great people, great players, just great teammates. Yeah, it was wonderful.
We can talk about this, but last night I was talking to a friend. I said, hey, we're going to do the first episodes of our podcast tomorrow, and I have Royce Bybee coming. And he says, Royce Bybee, I was in a class with him.
Oh.
And he remembered you well. He said, Royce was one of the most popular guys on the team. Said, I don't remember that. I thought that was me. No. But what he said was that Royce could have gone anywhere. This is him talking. He said, Royce was an unbelievable quarterback. He chose to come to BYU, but he was behind Mark Wilson and Jim McMahon. Mm-hmm. So he said that in class, he asked you, why did you come to BYU?
That's a great question, because they recruited me. So when I was in high school in 1972, I was going into my junior year. I started on the JV, and that's when the head coach went to USC. The head coach for varsity. Okay,
was that like
I was
in
on
the
JV
years, or McKay?
Yes, John McKay.
Yeah.
Yep. So he went to USC. His name was Dick Beam, and they were going to hire a new head coach. Well, all of a sudden, the newspaper heading comes, Fred Whittingham hired as Alhambra High School head coach. Well, nobody knew who he was, but he'd played in the NFL like 10 years. So he shows up.
Do you remember what team he played for in the NFL?
He played for the Eagles, I know, was one for sure, and I believe the Saints. Fred was amazing. He was the toughest guy I've ever been around, but also very, very, very good coach. I mean, a great coach. So at that time, he became the head coach at Alhambra. He's LDS, and I'm not a member of the church.
Really?
Nope. So there's a few members of the church that I knew, that at school at Alhambra, and he tells me, he comes up and says, I want you to go to a football camp. I don't know if I've told you this.
No.
I want you to go to a football camp up in Provo, Utah. It's at a college at BYU. And I've heard of BYU, and I'm like, and they go, I want you to go to the Lavelle Edwards summer camp.
Wow. What year?
This was 70. This would have been 73.
Okay.
I believe. I'm now up in Provo, and we're, going through all the drills and all the stuff, and we're playing, and I got I believe I received the most accurate passer award at the camp.
Who are the coaches at BYU in 7? Can you remember?
At that time,
Gary
at 72,
Painter?
there was Dewey Warren was like the offensive guy, and
Was Lavelle the head coach?
Lavelle was the head coach. He'd been there.
Was there a guy
year.
named Dwayne Painter that was the offensive
I've heard
coordinator?
that name, but I don't know.
That was okay. That
I
was
don't
probably
know.
afterwards.
Don't know. So anyway, I had a good camp, and at the end, I was talking to Coach Edwards, and he said, "Hey, we're gonna watch you and keep our eye on you," and and
How'd you feel about that?
and I thought, wow. I mean, that made my heart
You're just
feel
a young
pretty good.
kid.
I'm like going, wow, I'm only 16, 17, and he's interested,
That's
in me, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty neat. And so we started the season, and we didn't have a great season, but Lavelle and Fred Whittingham came down and recruited me, and I signed. But because I didn't take school serious, and they said,
Royce didn't take school
and I didn't
seriously?
at the time. It was all athletics. You
What?
got to go. You got to go take this thing called the ACT and all this stuff. And so there were a few of us. Fred Whittingham calls me one day after I had signed, and I had to go take the ACT. Well, I didn't do that great, and then they said, look, with your GPA and everything and the AC, you need to go to junior college first, then you come to BYU. And I'm like, okay. So on the phone, I made the decision. He called me and said, look,
Lavelle or Fred?
this was Fred.
Okay.
And he said, Lavelle's talked to the administration, but there's about 5 of you that we just can't get in right now, so you need to go to a JC first. I said, okay. I was heartbroken, but I thought, okay. And he goes, there's 2 schools. There are 2 that I can recommend. One is in a place called Rexburg, Idaho, named Rick's College, and another one is in Kansas. And I thought, I knew a girl that was going to Rick's that was LDS. And once again, I'm not a member of the church. And I said, on the phone, I'd heard of Rick's, and I thought, I'll go to Rick's College.
Wow.
Next thing I know, I get a call from Coach Charles Tiny Grant. He was huge. And he said, hey, we want to offer you a scholarship and come up there. So I headed to Rexburg, and after the first, semester, my uncle, who was a member of the church, my mom was not, but he baptized me after the first semester.
Wow.
And a year later, I went on a mission after my second season at Rick's College. Yeah, so that's
Royce. What
so
a
without
cool
Fred Whittingham in the mix, really, where would I be today? Boy, not where I'm at.
Who knows?
Not in the position I'm in right now. And you look back, and in a lot of this, you can look back and say, boy, at the time you don't know, but you look back and you can see the Lord's hand in things as you're moving forward in your life, from a faith standpoint. And I look back and think, wow, I'm just grateful for all that,
To close the loop on that friend of mine that I was talking to last night, he said, I asked Royce, why did you come to BYU? Because he knew how good of a quarterback you were. Mm-hmm. In fact, on the team, we would frequently say, Royce, if not the best quarterback in the WAC, mm-hmm. is at least the second best quarterback in the WAC, right? Yeah. And who knows about in the country? You had a fantastic capacity. I don't know if you still can throw a ball like you did, but
I can still throw it.
Probably
not as far.
Yeah. But we felt that way. My friend said that you answered BYU's where I'm supposed to be.
Yep.
That you were happy to be
I
a BYU.
felt like I didn't have any interest in going anywhere else. I know someone, I was told, Colorado or other schools needed a quarterback. And I just thought, you know what? I love it here.
Good for you.
Yeah, I love it at BYU. And the greatest blessing was I met my wife, Pam.
Now,
yeah.
I have to tell our audience, we have to be truthful here, right? And I know you to be a very good athlete, but probably you're the second best athlete.
Oh, yeah,
in your
my
family.
wife. She just won the gold medal at the Huntsman Senior Games in tennis in doubles. So
that is so cool.
Yeah, I'm proud of her.
I remember a story. Whenever people ask me about Royce Bybee, this is the one that I always remember, and you've corrected me on this, because I always said that in the offensive preparations for this game, I thought it was UTEP. You're saying it was New Mexico, and it probably was New Mexico. We back then would be winning games by a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think
that's why I got to play so much.
And I do want to hear about that day that you walked into the coach's office and looked at those stats. But this one is the one that I remember, because I tell people, Royce Bybee, we're in the prep room, and the coach says, whenever they line up in this lineup, you're going to call this audible.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought you audibled into a play. You threw a touchdown. We were already well ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you threw the touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And then you tell some of that story, Royce, because it is just hilarious to me.
So this was in 79, and we were playing New Mexico. I went in about, halfway through, or probably into the third quarter. So I got to play a lot. I hit 9 out of 11 passes. So I had a good game and a couple of TDs. And so Kent Tingey, who was behind Danny Plater and Bill Davis and Lloyd Jones, he was in the rotation, but the other three were the main receivers at the time. But Kent got some good time and was a good receiver, ran great routes. So we're playing New Mexico. We're driving down. We're on about the 20-yard line, and I'm looking to the sideline for the play to be running, because at that time the plays were run in by receivers. So I'm waiting, and there's nobody coming in, and the clock's, clicking down, and I don't want to get a delay of game. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I see Doug Scoville wave his hand like this, meaning call your own. Well, if they're going to have me call my own, there's only one place I'm going, and that's the end zone. So I got in the huddle, called a red left 67, and we were on the right hash
67,
mark.
67, is that
that's
one of
where
the six
both
step?
sides go up, hit the post, and go to the corner, and the
Okay.
tight end's right down the middle. So the free safety has to pick which way he's going if it's a cover one on
Sure.
man. So I came to the line of scrimmage and looked, and it was a cover one, which means Kent Tingey was going to be man on man. And I thought, the free safety's so far over, he can't get over.
He can't cover.
And I'm like, this can probably be a TD. So I dropped back, stepped up, hit Kent Tingey over the
Outside shoulder.
yeah, for a touchdown. And I come running off the field, and the fans, everyone's going crazy. And Doug Scoville meets me out on the field, literally comes out and says, Royce, you got to go hide. Lavelle's looking for you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And
Now, why would that be a problem?
Because Lavelle wanted to run the ball. And so when Lavelle on the sideline, he would go like this, and that meant keep it on the ground. Well, I didn't see that. All I saw was Scoville saying, call your own.
Yeah.
And so I came off the field, took my helmet off, and I'm looking around for Coach Edwards, and I'm going, oh my gosh. So I kind of hid back, by the bench. After throwing a TD, I come and hide.
You have to come hide.
And so he didn't show up, and I thought, okay, we're good. So anyway, yeah.
Now, I want to hear this, because I, too, was playing offense with you one of those years, and Doug Scoville had a mantra. Do you remember what his mantra was?
So he would, on Friday, our games were on Saturday. So on Friday, on the offense, we would only have shorts and, helmet walkthrough on Friday.
Yeah, at the stadium.
At the stadium. So he would bring the offense up, and we were standing facing the scoreboard, and passionately, he would say, I want to light up that scoreboard like a pinball machine, and everyone's going crazy because he couldn't score enough. Lavelle's the only one that kept things under control.
Right.
Because Scoville could not score.
We would have
enough.
scored.
Oh, it would have been off the charts what we would have scored.
We could have scored 100 points several games.
Yes.
Easily.
The thing that was so unique, and you'll remember this, Mike, in our team, with our team, I should say, and our teammates, is when we came out of the locker room, we came out to win. I mean,
I don't care who it was.
It didn't matter who it was. Losing,
Wisconsin, A&M?
Nope. Losing was not an option. In our mind, it was, you know,
And we had
we're
a
coming to win.
quiet confidence
it was a
about
quiet,
that, right?
'cause Lavelle was our coach, so he
Yeah.
was quietly confident. But when we walked on the field, we knew at that time we were here to win. But you know, it was not an option. Anything else was an option. So you just mentioned Texas A&M. So I got to tell my my Mike Lacey story. So in 1979, and a lot of people aren't familiar with this, the background on this. So the season starting, we're starting 2-a-days, and our first game is Texas A&M.
And we'd all been looking forward to that game, right? I mean, for a
couldn't
year.
wait, and they had a running back named Curtis Dickey.
Fastest man, fastest human being
and he
in
was
the
a
world.
track star. I mean,
Right.
this guy was incredible. And we were going to go against Curtis Dickey. And I
And
remember,
Jacob Green, do you remember the defensive end?
was it really? Was
Jacob
it?
Green,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
who,
Oh, my
who ended up being in the NFL,
Yep.
All-Pro.
Yep. Oh, my gosh. So we got down. We played in Houston because A&M Stadium, something was going
Was
on.
being built.
Okay. So we played in Houston.
I mean, it was being upgraded,
Yeah,
so they couldn't play in
renovated,
their
yeah.
stadium that year.
So we played there in Houston, and now I'll just skip to the fourth quarter. There's about 2 minutes left. We're losing 17 to 10. There was a second or third down and about 10, and Mike caught a pass, a diving one, I think, and they measured it, and it was first down. So now we're first down at about the 10.
At about the 10.
The next play or two, there was a PI in the end zone on Bill Davis, and so that put us on the 1. Then they handed the ball off to, I think, Eric.
It was me.
Was it you? Oh,
I
that's
think
right.
I lost a yard or
They
two.
lost the yard. So now we're on the 3. So now Scoville has Mark Wilson run a play, and he
Was it like a tight end delay?
It was
Okay.
something. I'm trying to remember. Anyway, it was because Clay Brown was on the left side, and he rolled out, faked, and hit Clay Brown for a touchdown. Now it's 17-16. So then we run. Do you remember what play it was on the 1 So we run a play. We go for 2. The score's 17-16.
We're down by 1.
We're down by 1.
And A&M, were they ranked that year?
I think so.
I think they were.
I think so.
Some people say they were 16th. I thought they
Yeah.
were 4th. But anyway,
Yeah.
they were a top team in
thought
the
they
country.
were top 10. So, yeah.
And so anyway, this is a big. If
this is
tie
huge.
Texas A&M, that's a big.
Oh no,
big deal.
this was big time.
And trust me, Royce, I
Big
was
time.
out on the field, and the stadium was as loud as.
I know.
I couldn't hear. When Mark came back to the huddle.
Yeah.
All right. We're all we have to lean over
Yeah.
because you can't even hear it.
Oh yeah.
It was crazy. And so Mark says, this is what Mark told me.
Okay.
We called a timeout. It's 17-16. Mark goes and talks to Lavelle and Doug. And Doug says, because Mark says, what are we going to run? And Doug says, let's run, he said, some timing pass that wide receiver catches it over their shoulder.
Probably
in the
a
end zone.
fade in the corner.
A fade in
We
the
had
corner.
a 98 fade. Yep.
Probably, yeah. And Mark said, no, let's run the fake draw pass.
And that's what you ran.
And he said, Doug and Lavelle looked at each other like, okay. And so Mark runs out on the field.
So Mark called it.
And that week or the week before, we'd just thrown in this new play, the fake draw pass. It worked well against our defense.
Yeah,
But that's what Mark told me. Anyway, I'm sorry.
So he takes the snap, does the fake draw pass, fakes it. You go into the end zone. He throws it. But the whole incredible, amazing part of the story is Mike Lacey makes a one-handed grab, brings it in, rolls in the end zone, gets up, and then does high step. You did the high step for a touchdown.
I was so
and
excited.
we won 18-17.
Oh,
that
Royce.
was it. So that's how 1979. That's how Mike Lacey put BYU football on the map.
BYU football did a lot to get to that point. Trust me.
Oh, believe me,
The whole team.
with the years previous, with Virgil Carter and Gary Scheide and Gifford Nielsen, you know what I mean? All those guys.
Think about that.
And then Mark Wilson and Jim McMahon.
And you were in the room,
I was around. This is what was really something. I was around Jim for 3 years because I was redshirted in '78 off my mission. Went to London, England on my mission.
You and I redshirted the same year,
'78. So I had 79 and '80 with Doug Scoville. So I got to sit in the room with him with the playbook. This guy was ahead of his time, way ahead of his time.
I think that he and Bill Walsh,
yes,
had somehow they were sharing notes.
Man,
because
it was something.
This new, I don't know whether you call it the West Coast offense, but it was amazing.
How many quarterbacks can say that they played with 3 quarterbacks that all have Super Bowl rings?
How many?
So yeah. Tell me who? Except me.
College? No, you'd be the only guy who was a backup to guys in college.
Exactly. That all. Jim McMahon, Super Bowl ring. Mark Wilson, Super Bowl ring. Steve Young, who was a freshman when I was a senior, Super Bowl ring.
Amazing.
And I played with all 3 of those guys, which was a great.
Well, you kind of taught them all. I think they all have.
I don't know about that. Yeah. But yeah, those were incredible.
But share
days,
that stat, and then I want to go to where you mentored a young quarterback. Share the stat that you saw in Lavelle's office.
Oh, I was coming up the stairs one day. Lavelle's office was up above the field house. You remember you would walk up and it was up there.
Oh, yeah.
So I was walking up, and on the door, taped up, were the stats for the WAC. So I go up there and look, and number 1 was in passing, obviously, was Mark Wilson in the WAC. And I was number 2.
You were number 2.
And I'm going, what the heck? I still wish I had that sheet of paper.
I wish you did
was,
too.
it was.
But in the whole conference.
Yeah, I'm going
you
back
were the
up as number 2.
and you had maybe 2 quarters of real playing time. Because a lot of times you're handing off in the fourth quarter.
2 or 3. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
I mean, if you're a real BYU Cougar fan, there was a time in one season where we were out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
I think Taysom Hill had a huge injury, and who was going to back him up?
Yep. Christian Stewart, great young man. He was at Timpanogos High School. I coached him for, 2 or 3 years.
Why? Why were you coaching?
I helped the quarterbacks for almost 10 years.
Really?
So many of them
because you wanted to.
Yeah, I just went over and helped them with techniques and drops and how to throw, and I understand the technique pretty good.
Yeah.
So I helped, helped Christian, and he played at Snow and had incredible, stats, but BYU wasn't recruiting him like I thought they would be.
They should be.
They should have been. So at the time, eventually, he makes his way, to BYU, and the rest of the story is history. Taysom Hill.
But wasn't he kind of not even going to play football when he went to BYU, or did he? Was he on the team right from the start?
He came. Yeah, he was on the team because he talked to Coach Mendenhall. They realized, I think at one point, that they needed, more quarterbacks than Taysom. They needed more help.
Sure.
And Christian had some great stats and had a great arm, so they put him higher on the priority list. At first he wasn't. Then he got on the list, and then Bronco brought him on, and Taysom got hurt, and Christian takes over for there and did great for the rest of the season.
But the rest of the story is what Royce isn't telling, and I'm going to pull a Paul Harvey, the rest of the story, because Dick Harmon wrote that article in, what was it, the Deseret News?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the irony of Fred Whittingham being your coach for 1 year, and all of a sudden he's gone, and then your team unfortunately didn't have a great senior year, as great as it could have been.
But I was, still recruited.
And yet you still got recruited. And Fred, somehow you made it to BYU. You joined the church. You met him.
Yep.
But then later on, you're mentoring these not children, but high school athletes, and playing quarterback at the college level. Someone with your experience, I'm going to say 1 in 10,000 people or less has that knowledge base, and 1 in a million people have that interest, and emotion. I love that you were actually a mentor to him, and that revealed in that story, the father, Christian Stewart himself, recognized that, wow, Royce Bybee, really gave him his start. And if it weren't for you, if it weren't for Fred Whittingham, Christian wouldn't have been there to save the day. I don't know. You can say that.
He might have been there in another way.
Well, of course, I'm not saying that. He had that talent.
He
you
did.
Could tell.
Oh,
You could tell.
he did. And looking at the whole thing, looking at everything and the sequence of events, I'm really back to the faith side, seeing the Lord's hand all, through this, because I could have never orchestrated any of that.
I love
myself.
that, Royce. I love that.
Ever. Could have never orchestrated that myself.
Thanks.
So I'm blessed and grateful to be at BYU, to play under Lavelle Edwards, to be there with Doug Scoville, to be there. And let me tell you who's not mentioned as a lot, but should be mentioned a lot more. It's Fred Whittingham. Without him as the defensive coordinator at BYU when Doug Scoville was the offensive coordinator, how would things have gone? Because we had a defense that was incredible.
We did. And
we had an
incredible
defense.
That defense was not given the credit it was due.
No.
Because people don't understand that when our offense held the ball for such a short amount of time and scored so frequently, our defense had to be on the field like 1.5 times.
They were there
what all the other teams had to be. So statistically, I remember that per offensive play that the teams ran against us, we had a super good stat, but total yards were a little bit more because our defense was on they were playing 50% more plays.
Do you remember who the middle backer was?
Are you thinking about Kyle Whittingham?
Kyle Whittingham, Fred's son, was a middle backer. And I believe it was 1979. Kyle was the defensive player of the year in the WAC.
Wow.
I mean, he could hit like a ton of bricks, Kyle.
It was in the DNA, I think.
I don't know if you could have had a better triangle than Lavelle Edwards, Doug Scoville, and Fred Whittingham.
I agree.
But there's other great coaches that were there too, Mike. Norm Chow, he was a receiver coach. Garth Hall, he was a running backs coach. Just other,
Tom Ramage.
Right. Roger French. Without Roger French on the offensive line, I mean, this is just heaven sent. And we can't even leave talking about BYU football 1980 without SMU.
Oh, worry.
So we're playing SMU, and everybody knows, with 3 seconds to go, McMahon hit Clay Brown on a Hail Mary, to win, and Kurt Gunther kicks the field goal, and we win 46-45. The thing that people don't realize is who we are playing against personally, the personnel.
Let me set the stage for you a sec, because in the you have a whole week of preparation.
Yep.
BYU was ranked really high that year. SMU likewise rated really high.
Oh, yeah.
But they're all these young guys that I know you'll go into this, so I won't talk about how great they were. But I just remember our team coming in with strollers and wives.
Oh, yeah.
And SMU coming in these young athletic
boom boxes and
and they're looking at us like, what the heck is just come in? Because you're in their convention center in San Diego. All the cities there, both teams are there, fans are there.
Oh my God!
And you remember how funny?
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Do I remember that? Oh my God!
So tell us about the SMU
team. With SMU, we come on the field. I still remember going on the field and looking down and seeing the size of them. And I'm going, oh, my gosh. And of course,
they had Michael Carter.
And there's Eric Dickerson.
Yep.
Craig James, known as the Pony Express. They are incredible.
Future NFL stars.
Future NFL, both of them. And I'm going, oh, my gosh. And the quarterback, I believe it was McElhaney.
Yeah,
it was at quarterback. And so I looked at them in the warm-up, and I'm going, wow, they're a big team. And then they came out, and we started playing. And, of course, everyone's going, whoa, they're good. They're good.
The Pony Express.
The Pony Express starting expressing its feelings.
Yes.
And so by halftime, I do remember going to the locker room and thinking, "Good heavens to Betsy, we if we could get a score and get out of
Let's
Dodge,
go home."
these guys, it's like playing a pro team."
Yeah.
Little did we know, we almost were, because a few years later they got the death penalty because of all their I mean, they were paying. They were
Sports Illustrated ran a story saying
people.
they were the best team money could buy.
That's right.
In the NCAA.
And they were, and we were the ones who found out some of that. We got to experience that, but we still beat them. You know, we still beat them.
How did we beat them?
I tell you,
because I had that same feeling. Like, how do we come back against a team like this? Because we were down by 3 or more touchdowns.
3 touchdowns. It was with 3 minutes to go. It was 45-20. That's right.
That's hard to overcome.
Is that right? 45?
I don't know.
45-25. That was it. It was 45-25 because we won 46-45. If there had to be one thing, there were many things that happened. You know, I mean, Bill Shefflin, you know, blocking that punt, but there's so
Lee
many
Johnson and our onside kicks.
Right, the onside kick. I mean, all of those line up. But boy, if you come back to it, you got to come back to Jim McMahon. I mean, Jim just, you know, willed himself to.
I'm going to interrupt you one more time.
Get things done. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know why I like being near the coaches.
Oh, yeah.
But I was behind Doug Scoville, Lavelle Edwards.
Yep.
And actually, I was going to be on the punt team. So there was a point early in the third quarter. It was 4th and 10 near midfield. Mm-hmm. And Coach Edwards said, because it was futile. It was futile. Mm-hmm. Our offense wasn't doing anything. Our defense wasn't doing anything. Coach Edwards sent the punt team in. Mm-hmm. And McMahon stayed out at midfield. Mm-hmm. So what are we doing? Throwing the game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Doug and Lavelle look at each other, and they have this kind of like, well, what should we do? They called a timeout. Critical timeout. We needed that timeout at the end of the game. And they sent the offense back on. All of a sudden, I remember feeling it myself. It was like the ice just broke.
Oh, yeah.
Because Jim, you know,
Jim just took it on his shoulders. He did. He willed it. Jim just took it on his shoulders and said, you know, follow me.
Yeah.
Here we go.
And we did.
And that's the thing about Jim, you know, playing with Jim. Mark Wilson was great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, great. They all had their different qualities, you know. Jim McMahon just, you know, had an incredible will and competitive, you know, to win. But in that moment against SMU, you know, that later in the game too, Mike, you know, at the end, I believe at one point we were going to punt again. You know, at the end when there were less than, I can't remember the time, but yeah, I have to look at the script on it. But looking at everything, the whole thing came down to, you know, Jim just took over.
You know, there was one point where I thought I was going to be the star of that game.
Really?
Do you realize that?
No.
No, I've shared this with only a couple of people.
Oh, wow. I got to hear this.
When Bill Shefflin blocked the punt.
Yes.
Right, I played center field in baseball.
Yeah.
So I'm used to coming in and scooping up the ball.
Were you coming on the other side?
I was right there.
Right
the
there.
Ball hit the ground. And I'm in my brain, in that fraction of a second, I'm picking it up and scoring a touchdown.
Were you that close? You were that close?
I was that close.
You could have picked it up.
I could have. And the punter reached over and
played. Wow.
So, he took away that.
He took away history.
And then you need Jim McMahon and Clay Brown to be the stars. But what a fun time. You are so good. Royce, this has been fun to visit with you today.
It's been great.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for the offer to come in and you know, answer a few questions.
These stories behind the game, to me, add so much brightness and color to what, you know, were just plays that we played. We were X's and O's back then, but I like to say X's and O's are people too.
Yep. No, it's been great. Thanks so much for having me here to do this.